Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome to EduTALK. EduTALK is a virtual talk show created out of the need for a global learning community. And we focus on topics that are directly impacting people right around the world. And it deals with our health, education, educating you about your health and wellness, as well as if you can help other people in the process. And my guest this evening is a repeat on our program. She is none other than Dr. Priyanta Ravi, and she is a neurologist and she has done research about the brain and mental health, as well as some um, procedures that you will become familiar because she has been on our program already to talk about these different we're calling them sicknesses or problems that we go through, especially when you're getting older with your brain, like dementia and Alzheimer's, and what you can do to assist you. So on our program on EduTalk this week, we have her with us again. Thank you, Dr. Ravi, for coming back to talk about stress, sleep, and your mental health. Welcome again, and tell everybody who you are in case some people are still wondering.
All right. Thank you so much for having me again, Dr. Dice. And it's a pleasure to be on the platform and hopefully engage with yourself and your viewers again. So I'm a neuropsychologist, and my background is in basically studying the brain, understanding how it works, but also using that information for treating the brain. So whether it's got to do with healthy aging, how the brain works, or any kind of disease that might happen through lifestyle factors, injury, trauma, all of that. So, yeah, I'm really pleased to be back in your podcast again today.
Yeah, thank you. So let's dive right into this idea of stress. We say, what does a healthy brain look like
Mhm.
to you as a neurologist?
So, a healthy brain basically would mean that you can do all of your brain functions. So, whether it's moving, talking, looking, seeing, all of your cognitive functions are intact, but also how you're dealing with stress. So, it can be physical stress, lifting things. That's got to do with your brain coordinating movement and strength, but also sort of chronic stress or stress from an emotional environment or your social environment, how you're coping with the psychological aspects of stress as well. So a healthy brain wouldn't be stress-free. That's the catch. It's just that a healthy brain would be able to deal with the stress and a lot better and still function well.
I like how you put that because some people might think that in a regular day-to-day lifestyle, you're supposed to be without stress. And they take on these ideas of yoga and meditation to get rid of stress. So tell us a little bit about very briefly about the different types of stress that are so good for you, or you can cope with, and you should go through those type of stress. And then the stress that you really need to do yoga and meditation to get rid of.
Right, right. So basically, it's not the what, it's the how, you know? So the problem isn't here so much the stress. It's just in recent times we've heard so much about stress and there's a negative connotation about it because it really, makes people feel quite low or it
Mhm.
starts affecting their behavior and things like that. But really, the biology behind stress is actually that is what has actually allowed us to evolve. So psychologically, human beings back to when we were hunter-gatherers, we had different mechanisms. And how that basically worked was, out in the jungle, especially with other animals now, we see that, you've got a hunter and somebody else that's trying to maybe prey, seeing the other party as food. So human beings developed a very strong psychological instinct so that if they got ambushed by, say, other humans or another animal, it could be a lion or a tiger. So there were three things that would happen, right? Initially, it was just two, but we know now that there's three. One is in that kind of stress where you're sort of thinking, oh my God, what's happening behind me? What's there? Can I see you? Can I not see you? That kind of stress either makes you freeze, it makes you fawn, where you kind of back out and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna go forward, and you retreat,
Mhm.
or it makes you fight.
Yeah.
right? So there's a very, though the response is psychological, there's a very somatic reasoning or mechanisms for how stress works. So ideally, those kind of stressful environments really kind of helped us survive. So stress actually is, when we feel stress or when the body and the mind psychologically see stress or something that causes them stress, their
Mhm.
adrenaline goes up, their stress levels go up, different kinds of hormones like cortisol that are involved in stress. Why? Because it's preparing your body for action, whether you fight or you fly away, fight or flight. So that is how stress has actually shaped human beings. Because if we don't get affected by things, we won't actually act, we won't change, we won't do anything.
Mhm.
So really, um, the whole concept behind stress or the whole point of why we do get stressed is just to kind of motivate us to do things, to think, to work, to act in
Mhm.
certain situations and do better. So that's the whole purpose of stress. Beyond that kind of very simple measure, how we see stress today is more in the sense of chronic stress. So
Mhm.
chronic stress is, not so much the situation in the jungle anymore where you get ambushed or attacked, and once the event is over, it's done and dusted and you're safe.
Mhm.
Chronic stress is, dealing with everyday problems over a long period of time. So anything that's chronic, it's a long period of time. So maybe it could be pushing for deadlines at work. So you must have spent, a couple of weeks to a few months, maybe 6 months, where you've been stressing about whether you can meet this deadline. So that's chronic. That can have more deadly consequences for you in terms of, health related issues, as
Mhm.
opposed to a stress, like the I guess initial days in terms of that jungle scenario where it was
Right.
only in situations, which lasted very little, and it was a do or die kind of situation.
Mhm.
So that is basically the concept behind stress. As human beings have evolved, stress has evolved too. So before it was just for survival.
Yeah.
Now it's not so much for survival, but it's got there's a lot more psychological issues with stress. Some people are a little bit more prone to it. Some people are mentally more prone to it, and it becomes easier to I guess in a way that if once you understand it, you can break it down to see what is actually causing you stress and how you can resolve it. So
Mhm.
really it gives you stress is no longer external as much, it's more internal.
How do you classify? That's very good because I wanted to ask you. The one is because we're moving away from hunter-gatherer type of situation out in the
Yeah.
wild. So now some of the chronic stress, would you say that like for a political decision, if politics
Mhm.
gone south with you, would you say that is a chronic stress on you because the political systems of our world, if it becomes overbearing, then it causes stress, depending on the situation that we find ourselves in with in terms of political decisions, things that affect our work, it becomes chronic. So instead of you
Yeah.
can run away from that animal of the leadership, maybe of a country, if it becomes chronic. So you have to learn to deal with it. And it's is it similar to the situation that you paint with the hunter gatherer and people who are hunting the animals? They have a way of running away from the animals, and sometimes they might get pinned down with the animals. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
living in a place where you're constantly under stress because of the decisions of a leader or decisions of
Yeah.
some managers in your company, something like that.
Yeah. I know, absolutely, absolutely. So, I'd like to sort of take this to a spiritual angle because you know how spirituality has become really prominent in the world in the modern day, especially after COVID, because like you said, people are now realizing that meditating, connecting with oneself,
Mhm.
whether it's through a religious pathway or just through yourself as well, but that your aura, your vibration is very important, and having the right people, right vibration around you is very important. And that's absolutely true because stress is psychosomatic. So if somebody is problematic or is carrying a lot of trouble, being around them naturally, you pick them up. Initially, you may seem like, what are you on about? But over a lot of long time, that exposure, it actually trickles. So if a person is stressed,
Yeah.
particularly if they're not managing their stress, so whether it's an anxiety or something, and it's coming out onto other people through their behavior,
Mm-hmm.
It's psychosomatic. They're feeling agitated and they behave in ways that probably might not be appropriate or suitable, and it starts affecting other people.
Yeah.
There is a domino effect. So you're quite right. Chronic
Wow.
stress, if one person has it, it's not contagious in the sense that, you touch it and you pass it on like viruses and other pathogens, but
Right.
just being in that environment, low vibrational, again, that spiritual quote, that really affects you. So that is why it's very important to say that, you need to lift your vibration up. You need to
Yeah.
manage your stress. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't solve the problem or the person you can't get rid of, you have to deal with them. You have to deal with other ways of making sure that you sort of shield yourself energetically from that, because once that stress gets onto you, here's the process, right? You might not be stressed, somebody else around you is stressed. They might say or do something that might hurt you
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, and you're going to carry that emotional stress. It's going to affect you psychologically, it's going to affect your mental well-being. And beyond the point, if you still continue to get that exposure, it starts manifesting in your body.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. How hope people are listening because your friends actually contribute to your mental and social health.
Mhm.
That's what it boils down to. That's good. That's very good stuff. We usually say, like Bob Marley has a song that says, positive vibration, positive vibration. Whoever, like you're vibrating energy, and that energy,
Yeah, yeah.
it's either positive or negative, around you. Negative
Yeah. And
people bring off that. Yeah, go on.
oh, absolutely. And some people who are a lot more evolved, they actually pick this up. They might not verbalize it as much, but they pick it up. So they will just kind of, they're a little bit more selective with how
Mhm.
they engage with people and how far they go with different personalities, which is actually really good. It's a very sharp form of emotional intelligence, and really needed in today's day because, back in the time that we're talking about, when humans had not evolved as much and we were living in sort of more isolated cohorts,
Mhm.
and you would kind of the survival would not just be between living in the environment and surviving in the environment away from predators like animals, lions and things like that, but also other humans, when there was scarcity for food and things like that. So you would really be on edge, and at that time, your physical strength would be really important, but also over time, now that physically human beings have evolved so much, and genetically, we're a lot stronger in that sense. But the evolution really now has got to do with our brain. So that is really important because naturally, in psychology, we used to have this debate, whether it's your genes that are
Mhm.
actually going to,
Yeah.
be responsible for making you who you are, both as a person, but also how you behave.
Mhm.
But also, is it your environment? So is it the nature or the nurture debate? But
Yeah.
actually, your environment in this stage, whether it's, your immediate social environment or your emotional environment, doesn't really matter because that environment is still genetically linked to you. So
Mhm.
it comes through your epigenetics, So your genes, in the sense, your DNA that you get from your parents gives you your physical body and things like that. But
Mhm.
your social environment, your nurturing, your conditioning, that forms your epigenetics, which is basically how your brain or your body um, runs on a normal day-to-day basis. Because if it gets, I guess, stressed,
Mhm.
then it starts affecting your body's ability to repair itself. And we know that's very important. If you want to fight diseases, you need to have a
Yeah.
good immune system.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing that affects aging, particularly in the brain, that you're not able to repair yourself as well because your system is so much stressed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you can even go further with that with the type of what about in terms of the your stress level and the type of foods that you eat? Do those food affect how stress affect your organs and your body functions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it isn't so much the fact that if you have something and it's going to affect you,
Mm-hmm.
it's not so much the immediate effects that we're talking about, but more long term. That's why it's more about your eating habits rather than what you eat.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are eating healthily, that's a strong eating habit, then that's good because your eating processes, or I mean, your process of eating means that you're eating food that your body can work with, and it actually helps your body clean itself, repair itself, and heal itself. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're eating food that maybe to the palate tastes really good, but it's really hard for the body to break it down, it's making your body work harder. And it's
Right.
also taking energy away from the body from doing basic maintenance, so cleaning dead cells, repairing tissue, things like that, that it normally does every day. And that is why sleep is important because your body literally cleans up or
Mm-hmm.
repairs your cells overnight as we sleep.
Yeah, the segment into segue into sleep, which is where I'm getting with the food eating and then with the repairs and so on. So talk to us about sleep. How some people like myself, sometimes I get 5 hours, sometimes 4 hours of sleep at night. Is that good for us over the long term though? When you get
Right.
what's ideal for sleeping and repairing of
So
the body?
the literature around sleep or
Mhm.
sleep science, as we call it now, conventionally used to think that the longer you sleep, or 7 to 8 hours of sleep for an adult, is good. But
Mhm.
we now know that that's just a rule of thumb. The lymphatic system is involved in sleep, and also there's different levels of consciousness that people go through in sleep.
Mhm.
So that's the difference, when we're sleeping versus to when a person is unconscious. The level of awareness when you're sleeping is slightly changed, and it's not one level for everyone. You alter. So there's different waves being produced in the brain at that time. So for those people who have read things around sleep science, or maybe looked at some of the ads for some of the sleep science, I guess, advertisements that are coming up for different products that are being put on market that helps with, alpha waves, gamma waves, white noise, things like that. Why? Because the brain's frequency changes at that point in time. So the deeper it is, the better it is, because then mentally, emotionally, and psychologically, you are processing things a lot better. You're getting a lot of insights subconsciously without making a lot of effort. And at the same time, the brain is, I guess the brain and the rest of the body are coordinating a massive cleanup and a repair. So really, it's not so much the length, but actually how long you go into that. So there's something called delta waves, and sleep scientists say that it's the delta waves. So if you can hit delta waves when you're sleeping, then that means that the longer you are in that delta phase for your brain and generating that wave, that frequency, the better it is for your brain and for the rest of your body.
Oh,
So
wow.
the
I would
sleep
love
science
to reach there.
research, yeah, the sleep science research, they literally, get participants and they
Yeah.
create a sort of sleeping cell, and they basically hook up a whole bunch of wires and electrodes to your brain, and they say, okay, your job is to fall asleep tonight. And they actually monitor you. So you might fall asleep, but your brain might be generating different waves. So they will, over time, usually it's about 2 to 3 weeks, they will monitor how long it takes you to go into that. So the lighter sleepers, they wake up very quickly. They're a lot more alert, but
Mhm.
they don't go into that. They're more sort of in the alpha waves.
Wow, that's like me right there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not good.
So now people are understanding, and even sleep doctors and sleep scientists are saying that, it's not so much the duration of sleep that matters, but also the kind of sleep, the depth of the sleep that you're getting for your body and your brain, because that's the key thing,
Yeah.
it- for certain times, certain cycles, your sleep patterns will change, especially like you say, if you're stressed, or you
Mhm.
might be worried about an important event or something that's bothering you, then you might be more in the alpha zone. But
Yeah.
it's important to resolve that, because then your body really needs to kind of go back and generate some level of delta frequency so that it can deal with all these other things, especially psychologically when there's subconscious level processing happening. That's
Yeah.
very important.
What about is there any exercises that you can do, any routine things that you can do to get you to go off into deep sleep?
I mean, nothing has been sort of proven as a
Right.
gold standard as of now. We're still trying to understand that, but we know that clearing your mind psychologically, mentally, making sure that if something is bothering you, you're not carrying with. carrying that to you to bed is really important. So I guess the wisdom that I guess a lot of people and their families would have heard from their elders is that, don't carry your troubles to sleep. That's a golden rule, because if you keep ruminating over it in bed, you start thinking more about it. It starts to sort of manifest both in your body and in your life. You're giving it too much energy, but it's also keeping your body engaged in trying to deal with that. So it doesn't repair your body very well. So that's when you start realizing that, I'm stressed, I'm not sleeping well.
Mhm.
Surprise, surprise, your health starts going down because your body is no longer repairing itself.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, I think I need to do a little bit more in terms of that to get to that level of what do they call it, tranquility before going
Mm.
off into sleep. Yeah. I know I have
So
friends who are like that too. They have
yeah,
difficulty.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's very hard, for us to actually say that if you have a person who's sleeping, and is it half an hour into the sleep or 30 minutes or 1 hour, 45 minutes, how soon you're going to go into that delta
Yeah.
wave, we can't really tell. That
Wow.
depends on the body's own capabilities. But that is why consistency is really important. Having the same sort of time where you go to bed and the same sort of
Mhm.
time where you wake up is really important, so that your body
Okay.
can have a routine, because then it
Yeah.
will build its own cycle, its own
Mhm.
system for generating those delta waves. But it's very hard to kind of say that, okay, I don't think sleep science would ever go to that point where we'd be able to tell people that, okay, you're going to go to sleep now, but we're going to, switch off a couple of buttons and make sure that you're only generating delta waves. So it's going to be very difficult. So that is why they're saying that, consistency is key, getting to bed on time, making sure you wake up hopefully the same time, unless, you've kind of been up longer the previous day or something. But
Mhm.
in general, having a good sort of routine around sleep and also before bed, if things are bothering you or your mental health isn't that good,
Mhm.
don't watch, say, the news, or don't be on your phone, or try and avoid places where you're getting a lot of influence that's, contradicting you.
Yeah.
So stay away from social media and maybe just calm yourself down. So a lot of
Mhm.
people like to, have warm baths, or they like to, have I wouldn't say a sort of facial, but they like to wash their face with warm water, because that really helps the body, and especially through your eyes, where
Yeah.
the skin is thin, the warm water really helps to kind of prepare the body to say, hey, look, we're slowing down now. We're not
Yeah.
going to do more work. Let's just, prepare your body to actually switch off and go into sleep mode.
Okay. All right. So as we are winding down, I want to ask you a few, like maybe two more questions about the age in terms of, nowadays where they talk about stress on young people, and I'm tying
Yeah.
all of this together, which is stress, sleep, and brain health. When you look at young people compared to older folks who understand that, hey, we need to get off social media or turn off certain devices, the blue light in the middle of the night, and so on. Young people, younger generation, they don't really see that as being as dangerous. They see it as a joy time into the middle of the night, and especially when nobody's watching. What are some of the things that can help to alleviate the stress and the negative sleep patterns among
Hmm.
the younger folks?
Yeah.
And then some of that can help with the older people who really need to take this seriously.
No, no, absolutely. So when we talk about things like work-life balance, what we actually mean is not just work in the sense that the work you're doing at your job, at your office, or wherever you are employed, but also when you come back home, So if you work longer hours, naturally that pushes out your entire timetable, for people, for things that they need to do when they come back home, and they feel stressed, and then they're like, my house is a mess because I want to do this. So having that balance, or at least having a routine, is really important. And again, like you said, for the younger generation nowadays, it's a cool thing, staying up. But for previous generations, you didn't get that luxury. You either had very strict disciplines in the house where, lights would be out by 9 o'clock or something, which I guess we can see was really good.
Mhm.
But prior to that, previous generations didn't even have electricity at night. So they didn't get the luxury to stay up or have devices plugged in and lights, out on them. So you're quite right. So again, younger generation do need to be a little bit more aware about their overall health. It's not just about eating well or dieting or going to the gym. It's that entire system of how you live your life daily because that really matters. One night of poor sleep reduces brain performance the next day by 30%.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That
And
is,
over time, yeah, over time, if we continue with that pattern, so if it's 1 or 2 nights here and there during the week where you struggled or you had stressful day and you didn't sleep very well or you slept late, and late as in, say if your bedtime is 10 o'clock and you went to bed at
mhm,
say 11, that's okay. That's okay. Your brain can manage that. But if
yeah,
you're, maybe those people who party too much over the weekends, 3 nights in a row they are up till midnight, past midnight, and it becomes a lifestyle. That's a problem because
mhm,
the brain cannot process your emotions at that time very well. So if you are going through any kind of trauma or grief or anything like that, you can't heal from that. So emotionally you'll always be very drained. It doesn't help your mental health, and the brain actually refines your memory and cleans clutter at that time. So your memory actually you will find if you stay up longer, and
mhm,
particularly if you pair it with things like maybe drinking or not having good healthy lifestyle, your memory actually goes down. And over time, your brain ages faster, which means that it can't flush out toxins that are responsible for things like dementia. So you're
mhm,
more likely to not just age faster, but to have different kinds of diseases that are related to the brain or any parts of the body, really, because the brain and the immune system, they coordinate the cleanup and the repair. If you can't heal your body, then over a period of time, especially as you age, when the brain and the body is also sort of slowing down their
mhm.
healing powers sort of go down over time. It makes it harder for them to just do the basic stuff. So, you can't eliminate stress, but if you're smart enough, you can just build good systems around your life so you can manage it so your body doesn't get prolonged, dumped with a whole bunch of things that it has to kind of deal with over a long period of time.
Yeah. Wow, this is very good. So there is actually something known as beauty sleep then. There is, based
Sleep
on
is a
our,
little bit different. Yeah, yeah. But
yeah,
the idea behind beauty sleep is the same that, you go to bed on time so you don't,
yeah,
when you wake up in the morning, you don't have the dark circles and things like that aesthetically.
yeah,
And actually, yeah, the people who do follow that routine in terms of, having very clear bedtimes, and if you have a hectic schedule or, you're
mhm,
traveling a lot, that's also really important because, you're working through different time zones and you won't get that sleep because
yes,
have to catch up with jet lag and things like that. But it's really good to kind of just have, 5, 6 hours of, putting your phone on airplane plane mode and putting a do not disturb sign and actually just kind of making sure that sleep is also part of that hectic routine.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. It's a good note to end, so that people can, think about these things, get more sleep, get deeper sleep, try to move away from the screens, especially when you're going to bed, and
Yeah,
um, and then find out what type of stress you're going through. If
yeah.
it's chronic stress or it's just regular stress that you're supposed to face something and you can
Hmm.
work through. And then again, people really need to seek therapy, like find somebody to talk to every now and then. Right. Thank you, Dr. Ravi. Thank you so much for being on EduTalk again. And I'm sure we're going to have you back on multiple more times to talk about these things with the brain, because a lot of it boils down to our what do you call it, the operating system in us. So it's very important. Thank you, everybody, for being on. I hope you learned something from this. This has been EduTalk. You can visit us at educationsolutionsinternational.org or edusolutionsintl.org, or you can write to us at edusolutionsintl@gmail.com. That's edusolutionsintl@gmail.com. Take care. Walk good. We'll see you next week. Bye.